So I'm down here on Michigan Avenue outside the Field Museum, and we have the two distinct lions, which is awesome, but they only dress them up for Christmas. Why don't they dress them up for Easter and the other holidays? Truly. And they could feature all kinds of pictures of Jesus and the disciples and all kinds of paintings during Easter at the Chicago Art Institute. Truly. And the 4th of July, they have all kinds of things during Independence Day. Truly. And then Thanksgiving, they have pictures depicting Native Americans and the Pilgrims and so on. And then Christmas, again, around Jesus and so on. And then Hanukkah, they can have pictures with Jews. And then the end of World War II, VD Day, victory. And what's it? Europe. So VE Day, victory Europe? No. Victory in Europe. But whatever. They can remember the Holocaust and have paintings and things at the Art Institute remembering the Holocaust, remembering the war in the Pacific, remembering the Japanese internment, and pictures and stuff there, paintings and things, statues going back to the Japanese internment here. Then they can have in Black History Month, I'm fine. They can have slave stuff, all kinds of Black history focusing on and things at the Art Institute. Truly. And this gives people reasons, and every year they can change what they feature, and they work with other art galleries, private art galleries, and private collectors to loan them to the Chicago Art Institute, and the Chicago Art Institute pays them for loaning it to them for these special exhibits. Like they borrow stuff maybe from the Holocaust Museum, and they pay the Holocaust Museum for loaning these certain pieces of art and statues and that. And so they can have these things. And so Columbia, it's a graphic design, arts, and everything. Columbia College, not university. CCC. Columbia College, Chicago. 3 C's. CCC. So, and it's right here. It's beautiful off the park. It's another institution. And look at these beautiful buildings. This one is the tallest of all the buildings right here in Museum or Central Station. Across it is Museum Park. But the sun's coming up. And this is when I would be going out jogging. Early in the morning when it's cooler. Get my jog in. Truly. And then start my day. So I used to do early morning workouts. And my brother John used to talk about Brandon's father and how he did his gym first thing in the morning. And how he got that out of the way so he can focus on the rest of the day. And plus, it's a great networking event. At the Deerfield Health Club, all those guys that were regulars over the years, they got to know each other. Truly, got to know each other. It was like a small community going to the health club. So all those people were friendly and talked to each other and used to see each other. I was there for a short period of time and started to get to know them and see them. But these people went every morning, like people that worked up in Deerfield. I used to see a guy who worked out at Belly's downtown in Chicago, which turned into LA Fitness, and he used to work out in Deerfield, and I see him at the club in the morning, and then he did sometimes 2-a-days, or maybe he missed a morning, and he would work out the club in the Chicago. So I see him in Deerfield, and I see him in Chicago. And then I saw this one banker female that I had a huge crush on, and she worked out here and in Deerfield as well. So, and it was nice. We kind of know each other in that. We didn't really speak, but you get familiar. Other people I started talking with, and you start making these connections in the gym because you're a regular and they're regulars. And so you kind of meet these people that go to these gyms for years and years and years. But anyways, So we're down here in this area of Chicago, Roosevelt and Michigan. This is where Father Pfleger blocked off the intersection and made his stance. Wow. But this is where he closed down the intersection, and I watched as he protested. Wasn't creating any jobs, it was alienating everybody in the community. Oh, everybody around. I just watched him doing it. Then I watched the aftermath and everybody being pissed. Like, you want jobs? Why don't you come to us and ask for employment? Why don't you come to us and do fundraising? Why don't you come to us in this way and ask for assistance? I got Jen to work at Mercy School for the Boys, and I got Jen tutoring at a black school. Yeah, I talked to her, and she started tutoring and doing these things and helping out in the black community. Truly. And that was all driven by me. And I got them a ping pong table, and I tried to talk to my nephews to help build out at some private black school. Not black school, but the school was primarily all black because it was a black neighborhood. It was a private school. But I got them a ping pong table. And then I tried to I went all the way up and talked to Engelbert and about teaching lessons down there. And I tried to get Matt and Jim to go down there and help the school. This is all way back. They remember all this. And I was trying to do all this to help the black community because I tried all these things to try to get them to do the right thing. And I'm getting sick of them doing the wrong thing. So I tried and tried for decades and decades and decades, way before Breakdown. This goes way back. So I don't get it. And like Rich, who was my bar back at Charlie's, he got paid well and he left and moved on up and everything. And I had to find somebody to replace him. But he was discouraged. He was a black guy. He needed a job. I gave him a job. And he hustled for me. And he made great money. And then he found another career path. And I wished him well. And then I got Jeremy. And then my brother became my bar back. But the sun's rising. Now, the sun over the back of the building, because the sun rises in the east, these buildings face north and south. So yes, down the streetways, like they said, the Chicago whatever they did, and it's cool getting the sunlight perfectly aligned up with the streets. But now here you have the sunlight coming over each of these buildings. So each of these buildings, one by one, will get more illuminated because the sun rises in the east and it will slowly but surely illuminate each of these buildings. And so you can do a time lapse and just watch the sun come up over each of the buildings. And it'd be nice when there wasn't any clouds. But the clouds give it a different effect, and it will have a different look, and you can do it with clouds. It won't be as bright and shiny in that, but again, it'll be more, how do you say, dim. But again, beautiful shots. And the people that own those buildings, that you can get their permission to sell it commercially. And they get a percentage of the proceeds. So, truly, you can ask for those building owners' permission, and you can get a percentage of the proceeds. And if they're allowing you to do it, here's the Field Museum on the front side, and then there's the back side that's near Soldier Field. But, again, you know, I'm wondering And, there's this big mystery. What the hell are they going to do with Soldier Field? So I'm really interested to see what's going on with Soldier Field. And over here, there's not really any room to build anymore. So all you can do is really renovate. That truly, you can improve, you can tear down and build new, but there's no room. There's my building. It looks like a boat somewhat, truly like a ship. 1515 South Prairie. But we were not on the stadium side. But it would have been nice to have a view this way. And if Soldier Field moves, that building gets incredible views. 1515 South Prairie. If Soldier Field moves, they get incredible views of the lakefront. If they move to the other side of McCormick Place, that building wins huge, and the other buildings around here get better views of the lakefront. So, I don't know. And they're not really blocking any major views down that way if they move into the Michael Reese, which I guess I can go down, but I'll go down and around. But anyways, here, let's go down to the Michael Reese, and I don't know how much video I have left, but here's McCormick Place, right? And we're going down Lakeshore Drive. We're on the weekend. And so you get this area going down here. And here's St. Louis. I don't know how much business we do with St. Louis, Missouri, but they come down in large amounts when the Cubs play the St. Louis Cardinals. And I wonder if Chicago fans travel up there. So on the bend around into St. Louis, towards St. Louis, but really around this bend and then get off, and I'll be in Chinatown, and I'll be on the other side by the Michael Reese is straight on the other side of this bridge by the lakefront. So, but this bends around, and so heading towards St. Louis, then I'll exit up here, and so we'll get off here half a mile at State Street. So you have the Inside Hospital, which will be right by the stadium in case anything happens. They'll be minutes from the hospital, which in Arlington Heights, I don't know how far they're from the hospital. But the good thing about it, if they do move to the Michael Reese, they're right by this hospital. And so the paramedics can take the football players and everything. They're only a minute or two. Literally, they can be there in 5 minutes at max. So that's good for the football players because, time matters. But I don't know what type of physicians they have in that. Surely they would have to have a neurologist. Surely a neurologist and maybe a cardiologist and a neurosurgeon. So they'd have to have, during game days, they would have to have staffed on a neurosurgeon, a neurologist, a cardiologist, a few specialties that deal with football injuries, and then they handle other injuries that might be heat stroke and so on from fans or things like that. But there is, a proposition for it being built over this way. And who benefits? Well, Illinois Institute of Technology benefits, and the black community up this way because they own all the land this way. So it would be an investment into the black community, the South Loop Hotel. It would be a major investment into the black community by the NFL. That's why I told them they should move their stadium from San Francisco into Oakland, and they can invest in the black community by moving the stadium into Oakland, and that land in San Francisco is vitally needed for housing and commercial development. And so by moving the football stadium into Oakland, it would be the best thing. Now, truly, if they want to connect with the North Shore and that's fine. But also if they move up to Gary, Indiana, That's another investment. And they do get fans from Gary. But if the NFL wants to do a give back, that's how you do a give back. And they get cheap land. Land is cheaper over here. And they are, if they do the Michael Reese, they're right by here. They're right by Lake Michigan. And it's would be great for this community. It would push up property values greatly. So if they want to bring wealth into this community, they move the stadium to the Michael Reese thing, and all these buildings will get a automatic bump in equity. So if they want to make these people, they say, that are poor around here, get a bump in equity like they would do by moving the stadium into Oakland, they move the stadium into these poor areas, they get a bump. Like the United Center, it brought up all the housing around it. Even when it first went in, the value still went up. They didn't appreciate that much because there was incredible amount of crime. But that's another way that professional sports teams can pump money into communities, and they automatically get appreciation in the property values. They automatically will, because being near the stadium and its amenities, and the Michael Reese gives enough land where they can truly do a full build out like they talked about in Arlington Heights. This is a large chunk of land right by the lakefront. And then they have the train here, the RTA, and the Metras over there. But then they can run the RTA. So the Metra brings them in from Arlington Heights and everything, and it's right by the Metra. So they stay right on the Metra line. They stay right on the RTA line. They stay right by the train lines. And they do this large, and they have Advocate Outpatient Center. So they have a large piece of land here that if they build on it, this whole area here will get up. And they could relocate the parking lot if they needed more room. Surely they could relocate this parking lot. And there's land in front of it. And so there's a ton of land on the other side of these buildings that's available. And all these buildings would benefit. They would become, if they finalized it and said they were going to do it over here, all this land in this black community, and they say the NFL, the players union, right? Because the majority of the players are black in the NFL. Well, if they want to do a give back, and as long this area is peaceful, so I haven't had problems in this area. So this area tends to be peaceful, and they have an incredibly huge chunk of land up here where they can do a incredibly big development. I mean, this land on the other side, it goes all the way down. So it's all the way up there, all this here, and all the way down. So they got a massive segment of land. It goes all the way down, and they can add it and integrate it into McCormick Center. So they can integrate it, and all these people here will become wealthier overnight. It's just like when the Olympics, it was supposed to build stadiums on the south side and all that in these poor neighborhoods to bring them up. And so these people at the Prairie House Shores and that, and what they can do is do a rent freeze. Truly, a rent freeze. And have a moratorium for a period of time. So there's an adjustment period. And they have, say, a 5-year moratorium. And they agree, the buildings, the properties automatically, the people that own the buildings automatically get an increase in rent, and the tenants don't get displaced by the moratorium. So the buildings will go up in value, and then they can slowly increase the property tax as they slowly adjust the rent over 5 years. And so they slowly integrate the increase. So it's not overnight, and they're but they know it's coming in, they can plan ahead, and there's things they can do with re-education programs and jobs and so on and so forth, figuring out how to adjust their wage base to absorb the increase in rent. Truly, how to adjust their wage base to absorb increases in rent. So if they're renting, if they're condos, then there might be some more amenities, but they can reinvest in a building and do beautification and other things. But McCormick Place is right here. So who would, and then all those buildings on the other side, because they expand Museum Park and that and all the recreational and everything, and they get all those buildings where the stadium used to be, they bump in value as well. So both sides win, and McCormick Place wins. And so there's more convention, and they bump up the poor community. So the black community ends up getting incredible investment into them, where they're not benefiting over there. But if you move it into the Michael Reese, they benefit incredibly. And then the Players Association of the NFL has talks to the owners, and they go in together, the Players Association with the owners. Oh yeah, the Players Association, they have to invest their money as well. And they can go in with the owners and they can do financing, but they've never worked together. The Players Association and the owners, not in the NBA, not in the NFL, not in Major League Baseball. They've always been at each other's throats, but they can do joint investments in stadium and other things, and they can really, really work together to maximize their ability to generate income from what they do. But they actually have to have boards where they meet together, the Players Union, that for investments in stadiums and other property deals. And the Marriott Hotel's right there. And so staying at the Bears game, or going to the Bears and staying at the Marriott, staying at the Hyatt Hotel, staying at the Hilton Hotel. No one talks about coming down and renting the hotel for the weekend and making it a weekend experience going to the Bears game, or the same with going to the Bulls game. You know, weekday experiences are harder, but businessmen go to weekday games. Yeah, businessmen that are in town doing business, they tend to have free time during the day. They're in town, they want to see things, and they go to sporting events. And here's the McCormick Place, right? So, again, it would be a huge boom to the black community. But they have to clean up their act, because they have to be worthy of the investment, right? Because if not, then you're throwing money down the coffers of the gangs and horrible people, and your horrible people are, nice statue, horrible people are getting rich. And what do horrible people do? They do more horrible things when they get more money. So you don't want to be enriching bad people. So there has to be some kind of moral clause going into it, where they would meet with the housing associations and have agreements, as my friend John did. He went into it and he purchased units in all black communities, my friend John. He invested heavily in black communities. He's a Jewish guy, but he invested heavily in black communities. And his buildings, there is a moral clause. Any affiliation with gangs, automatic eviction. You're not allowed to have any gang members or anyone affiliated with gangs. You cannot deal drugs. If you're using drugs, you are subject to rehab, and if you don't go, eviction. But he had all these moral clauses, and then he would put his property and they signed. It's legal to, those are all things you can legally require. And his buildings did great in poor black communities, because his tenants, felt safe, and they were safe because he didn't tolerate any type of criminal endeavors. And if you were found to be doing them, you were gone. So his properties paid off. And I haven't talked to him in a long time. He graduated from Deerfield with me. And we talked about, he has a planning firm in Schaumburg, and he deals with lottery winners. Yeah, he focuses on, settlements and lottery winnings. People that get these big judgments or big lottery winnings. But anyways, my strategy would have been perfect for him, but he invests in poor communities, in particularly poor black communities. And what does he do? He tries to improve their life, and by improving their lives, he gets happier tenants. His buildings don't have any problems. There's no fires. There's no people getting shot, people ODing, no crime in the building, no crime around the building. And so his property values go up, and he gets happy tenants that love living there, and they want to stay there because it's safe. So if black people are watching this, or if you're in a Hispanic area or any bad area, it's a strategy to turn it around. And you can do this all around the world in bad communities, in El Salvador and other places. Truly. And so you can truly turn around communities. Here's Central Station, as it says here, in big letters. And I'm going to let this go. And this building would incredibly benefit where I'm going to go by right now, where I used to live. I wanted to buy my unit 818. And because I loved the time that I spent in that unit so much with Jen, that truly, and this is true, she sold it and I just wanted to buy it back. Because that time was very special to me. Her, not so much, she sold it off. But to me, it was very special. And so if I ever got money, I was going to buy the unit back. So here's 1515 South Prairie, and this building gets a huge bump. But all these buildings too, the lower floors without the stadium, they have better views. So again, and they were supposed to cover up the train tracks area and make a grass area behind where all the trains are. They were supposed to create this, enclosure like they did at Millennium Park, where the trains would run under, and they would have all this green and grass and trees above and create all this green space, which would bring an incredible boost to the property values here. Truly, it would clean up the air. It would make these property values that much more. And the city gets its money back through property taxes, right? And they can write off up to $10,000 a year on the Schedule A of property taxes. So, and the average pays about $1,800 in property taxes. That's, they said, the national average. I don't know how much they pay here. But again, repositioning things can be highly fruitful. And they called the new stadium the Mistake on the Lake, the Saucer Dome or whatever. No good names. So, and Tom Waddle used to always rag against it because it wasn't a dome stadium, because we couldn't get the Super Bowl. It had too few seating and wasn't a dome, and Chicago couldn't get the Super Bowl because you have to have so much seating capacity to get the Super Bowl. But what's the big deal if the people buying the tickets have to put down their IDs and have to be run background checks? They don't want criminals in the stadiums, right? Or ask Ariana Grande and ask them many of the other performances where they've had horrendous things happen. So why wouldn't they? They don't want anything bad at Lollapalooza. And they have the information. If anything happens to you, they notify you, have an emergency contact when you buy tickets to an event, they should ask for emergency contact and all that. Besides your information, emergency contact, and you can have medical information stored there as well. And it's only opened if something happens to you. So if a paramedic, or say you're at Lollapalooza and you get heat stroke, they need to know if you're diabetic or not. Truly, because it's a more severe situation if you're a diabetic and get heat stroke. So again, they need to know. Or maybe you have coronary artery disease or something else, and heat stroke, they think, oh, just some water, but no, it could lead to a more serious condition. So it's a more severe, you need to be watched, and so on and so forth, how they treat you. They don't say, oh, just drink some, oh, okay, and go back out and you drop dead of a heart attack. Just giving you an example. So it's for the benefit. So anyone coming to the game, they should know everybody entering the stadium. They need to know everybody entering the stadium. They don't want to have pedophiles or anything else. So they need to know. So it protects. And see this area right here? They were to enclose this here, and there's no units below this, and that terrace deck would be basically near ground level. And they would have all this parkland for these buildings. Truly. So those buildings right there, there's nothing below. So again, it makes sense, but I don't know. And here I'm going to Museum Park, and you have the Field Museum, and you have Soldier Field, and you can expand. There are a million things you can do with this land that would be incredible. And it expands the museum park. And the stadium moves where it should be and incorporates with McCormick Place, because they've always wanted to expand and need. So the new stadium would incorporate McCormick Place. It would incorporate that abandoned land. It would have all kinds of lakefront access. They can build their own docks. Truly, the Chicago Bears can build their own boating dock facility and everything on the lake. They can have their own water taxi port that grows directly into the stadium. They could be the first stadium that actually has the boats pull into the stadium, because that Michael Reese is right there on the lakefront. So they can have you pull in the boats, and you can actually literally park the boats at the stadium. Truly. And they could have underground parking for the boats if they want it. They just